really nice to see everyone, and even though I can make it there in person, I it's really nice to present at last this year. I think I presented last year, and it's really nice I'm presenting again this year. So nice to meet everyone virtually from Nigeria. And today I'm going to be talking about quality, how you can prioritize quality over quantity when contributing to open source. And my name is Ruth. I'm an open source advocate. I'm also a technical writer, and I am also one of the GitHub stars from Nigeria here. So I'm going to be taking you through this topic because I feel it's very important, because especially for like new contributors, because when new contributors come into open source, it's very easy to want to think about green squares. It's very easy to want to make so many pull requests, and want to give so many contributions, and they do not prioritize quality. So I feel like this topic is very important, and I'm going to be talking about this in a couple of minutes. Trying to move my slides. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to move my slides. Okay, cool. Sorry. So yeah, so I usually like to start with, like, what an open source project is, because in the sense that it's an open source conference, there might be some folks who do not understand what you know an open source project is, or what open source is. There are some folks that have come into the conference to understand or learn what open source is. So let's go into what an open source project is before we dive into like best practices for making quality contributions. So an open source project, it's a project that the design pattern or the code pattern is freely available. The source code is open, right? The source code is open, and you have the liberty, you have the freedom to make contributions to this code. You can share this code, you can make alterations, and you can also make enhancements. So that code, that open source project has that the design pattern or the code base pattern, or its project open and available to the public to make edits, and make bug fixes, enhance it, share the code as well. So if you do not understand what an open source project is, I hope I've been able to give you a little bit of um you know intro on what an open source project is. So usually, for new contributors, you get when they come into open source, there are a whole lot of misconceptions about open source for new contributors, and we're going to take I'm going to take you through few of them. So most times, if you make a tweet out there, I think when I started contributing to open source, right, I made a tweet out there and asked some folks if beginners, right? I think it was a poll at that time. That was in 2020. So I kind of like asked beginners if they feel they can contribute to open source, and that poll ended up with a whole lot of persons, saying that they feel that as beginners, as people that are coding, are newbies, they cannot contribute to open source. So that was a chunk of the poll, right? And if it's still to today, sometimes because I run like office hours, most times I have calendar link that I run office hours, and most times when I meet new beginners, like beginners that are into code, not just open source, that just their code, they feel they can contribute to open source. So that's one thing I have over the years I've also been trying to work on, and tell beginners that they can contribute to open source. Now, this is another part of it, right? Many folks think that a lot, especially beginners, think that you need to know how to code. It's all about code, right? Open source, you just come in. If you don't know how to code, you're not welcome. Yeah, but that's a myth. That's not true. Like, that's a misconception, right? It's not just code contributions that are in open source. They are different. For me personally, I came in through documentation, right? I think I can count how many code pull requests I've given in the organizations I am in, right? So I came in through contributing via documentation, and I started getting into organizing events as well, and other contributions. So the the misconception that you need to know how to code to become a contributor is not true, and that non-code contributions are welcome in open source. So another thing which centers on this conversation about prioritizing like quality contributions is some persons feel, okay, I've come in, I've broken, I'm into open source, yeah, and what I just need to do is keep sending in those pull requests, just keep pushing it through. Anything that even does not seem like a bug, right, I fix it, right? But the important part of things is focusing on quality and not just how many pull requests, because sometimes some folks get bothered about like green squares a lot, right? The GitHub contribution graph. So some folks get bothered about that, but the main thing is focusing on the quality you're giving to that organization and not just how many pull requests that you can throw in. Another thing is, for beginners, they feel like they can accept like anything, and I think that's one thing that also leads to burnout, which is another important conversation, not for today. But some beginners feel that you just contribute to everything that comes along your way, but then it's good to align projects that you contribute to with your passion, your values, and your interests. Which is This is something I've also talked about. You do not need a lot of green squares to become an open source contributor. So even though you're not contributing via GitHub, your contributions are also valid. So let's rush through why you have to contribute to open source, right? There are so many reasons, right? And these are some of the reasons I have outlined here about how it improves your technical skill. Because personally, I started contributing to open source when I was a beginner, and over time, that was in 2020 when I was learning how to code. And over time, I've gotten better experiences because I've had senior developers that review my code. You get to turn your idea into reality, right? Something that's just a small idea, you get to see it as a big project, just the way Linux started, and other interesting open source projects. You get to teamwork, you get to collaborate. I think for me that's important, but that's why I contribute to open source, because of collaboration and the teamwork that it comes with. There's also the part of transparency, because everything is open and people can spot mistakes. You can also help others learn. You can also teach others, even at your beginner phase, even when you do not have things figured out. You can also help others learn as well. So now, how do you make these quality contributions? How do you prioritize quality over so many pull requests? How do you make this quality contribution? What are these best practices to make these quality contributions? First, you have to we talked about one of the myths earlier, that you just contributing to anything you see. But first, you have to select projects that align with your interest or your passion or your values, right? You have to select projects that you can relate to, right? For some people, I've met some folks when they want to, like, because I run office hours, I talk to a lot of beginners as well. When they want to start contributing to a project, they do not necessarily read through this project and understand what this project is about, and attach their interest to the project. They just start contributing, and along the way they get tired, and that's it. They move to the next project. So the important thing, when you want to pick an open source project, you have to select a project that is in alignment with your interests, your values, your passion, what you love doing. Say for example, you're a Python developer, you know that you love coding in Python, so something the Python community will be, very, very, very interesting to you. Or something, if you're a documentation person, there's Write the Docs. There are so many other projects that's relating documentation. Another thing is joining the community. For some persons, and disclaimer here, you must not join the community to contribute, right? You can be, a solo contributor, and that's fine. But one way, when you join the community, you get to understand what they do and how they do it, how things work there. So joining the community is one way to, get interest, drag in your interest and understand the community better. Another thing is choosing an area to focus on. Now, for example, or let me use myself. Yeah, so when I started contributing to open source, I saw the gap about, beginners finding it difficult to break it. So I said, okay, this is what I want to do, right? This is how I want to begin to advocate for people that are, trying to get their way in. And over the past 2 years, I have been doing that through speaking, through workshops, through office hours. So I chose like that area, like for beginners to advocate for. So that's my niche, right? For you, it can be that you have had frustrations with open source documentation, and you want to focus on improving open source docs. So any community you find yourself, you're always like on the documentation side, or it could be about code, right? It could be about, okay, you've seen really very crappy code in some projects, and you want to focus on making open source projects that you are part of, writing clean code and adding comments and all that stuff. So focusing on a niche will help you pitch in quality, will help you give more to the project. Right. And also being vocal on asking questions. When you are vocal in the community, and when you ask questions, where, like, how to help the community, what the community needs, what spots they are lacking, a lot of things. So being vocal and asking questions is another way to, like, prioritize quality and getting quality contributions as well. Now, helping others contribute, helping others learn, because then so many persons come into an open source project every single day. You have a newcomer coming and they want to contribute. You have somebody that is lost in the project. You have somebody that do not know their way around. So when you're those people, for sometimes some newcomers that come in, they get frustrated and some leave because they can't contribute. So you say, for example, you're a senior contributor, or you're not even a senior contributor, but you've made your own contribution before you sent in a pull request. Helping those folks that come in, these newcomers that come in, it's a quality contribution, because then you get to retain them. You get to retain these newcomers. So another way to, like, prioritize quality, to getting quality contributions to an open source project, is helping others learn. And it could be through mentoring. It could be through helping them find what they can contribute to, because I think that's a major issue for newcomers that want to contribute to a project. Finding something to attach to, it can help them find their focus or their niche. And also accepting feedback, right? And another thing is, not being violent, or accepting feedback gracefully and trying to implement them. Because if, for example, you sent in a pull request and there were some issues with the code, right? If you're not able to accept that feedback and implement them, and even ask questions while if it's not working the way you wanted it to work, if you're not able to do that, you don't send in quality contribution, right? So asking for feedback, accepting feedback rather, and implementing them also helps you send in a quality contribution. So now, what's the balance here? Quality versus quantity. Okay, yeah, I'm sending in quality contributions. I'm doing a whole lot of this. What's the balance? Now, when you start prioritizing quality over quantity, you see that it boosts your number of contributions, right? So it's not that quantity is not important, but as you start prioritizing quality, you get to boost the number of contributions, you get to contribute seamlessly, and then you see that your contributions are coming up and all that stuff. So that's like, it's not that while I talk about quality, it's not that quantity is out of the place, but when you prioritize quality, you get to see your contributions increase. So that's all I have for you today, and my time is almost up. But in case you have any questions, you can reach out to me at Kega Ruth. My LinkedIn also Ruti Kega, and this is my email as well. It was really nice talking to everyone, and I hope I get to see you all next year. Since I couldn't make it in person this year, I hope I get to see you all next year. Thank you for listening to my talk.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you.